Hey everyone, before we begin today's video, I just want to let you know that I've got an announcement to make. To celebrate the month of my birth, I'm hosting a subscriber giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be publicly subscribed to my channel for a chance to win a month's free patron access, which means all my content early, as well as access to all the parts of my patron exclusive series, What If Ash Used His Old Pokemon? Entries close at 11:59 PM on August 31st AEST. And if you subscribe to both channels, you get 2 entries in the competition. So what are you waiting for? A month's worth of free and early content is just a click away. Our tale begins in Shellstown, with our hero, Monkey D. Luffy, in conflict with Captain Axehand Morgan of the Marines. Up until now, Luffy's journey is not varied from canon, with him having still met Shanks and received his treasured straw hat. He has also crossed paths with an ambitious yet cowardly boy around his age named Kobe, who served as an unwilling cabin boy to Iron May Salvita until Luffy defeated her and won him his freedom. Now the pair have gone in search of pirate hunter Zoro, with the would-be pirate king seeking to add him to his crew. Unfortunately, when they arrive, they find Zoro a prisoner of the Marines, with his execution slayed for 3 days' time. In a desperate attempt to save the man, Luffy enters the Marine base, drawing Morgan's ire. It is here that we reach our divergence point, as despite Luffy's pestering, Zoro will not agree to join his crew, even refusing when the rubble lad offers him his swords in exchange for the green-haired swordsman's loyalty. Shrugging, Luffy drops the bundle of blades, saying fine, Zoro can die here if he wishes, though it seems this is a fate intended to be shared, as at that moment, a group of armed marines have their guns trained on the pair, as well as Kobe, who has already been shot in the shoulder. Despite this, as Luffy goes to deal with the marines, Kobe shows his first flickerings of courage as he unties Zoro, allowing him to enter the fray at last. Following this, the battle goes as canon, with Axehand Morgan falling to Luffy and Zoro's combined abilities, causing the two young men to admit they have good synergy. Nonetheless, when asked once more if he will join the fledgling Straw Hat Pirates, Zoro refuses, stating that on the contrary, one day he will hunt Luffy down, as he is still a pirate hunter, and would further his own ambitions to be the one who defeats the Pirate King. But today is not that day, so at least for now, they can continue to be allies for a little while longer. He then stumbles away in search of food, with Kobe and Luffy close on his heels. Together, the trio share a meal at Food Foo, where they are heralded as heroes for bringing an end to Morgan's tyranny, with even the local marine contingent who survived the battle coming to thank the boys, though they do inform them they'll need to leave, unless they want to deal with the consequences once HQ hears about the day's events. Without another word, Zoro departs, sparing only a brief glance for Luffy and Kobe, while the rubber boy likewise rises to his feet, ready to get back on the open ocean. The only holdout is Kobe, who pauses as the new marine leader asks if he is part of Luffy's group, with the boy freezing as he thinks on the question. While he does still want to be a marine, Luffy has done so much for him, being his first true friend, so how can he abandon him to face the Grand Line alone? Still waiting, the marine leader clears his throat, asking once more if Kobe is with the pirate or not, and as his eyes meet Luffy's, the pink-haired boy knows his answer, crying out that he's Luffy's first mate, his comrade, and his Nakama. Laughing uproariously that he knew he could count on Kobe, Luffy stretches his hand out to grab the other boy by his collar and snatch him over the heads of the Marines, with the pair soon finding themselves sprinting towards their dinghy as the soldiers of the world government chase after them. Despite the knowledge this will be his life from now on, Kobe cannot help but be swept up in Luffy's infectious laughter, laughing until his sides ache and he has tears in his eyes, all the while being buoyed by the realization that he is a true friend by his side. Following this, the duo soon find themselves in Orangetown, albeit separately, as Luffy is carried in by a peculiar bird he had been trying to get a close look at before it had abducted him, while Kobe, who had paddled after his captain, is soon accosted by 3 men claiming to be members of the Buggy Pirates, who quickly overpower and take the boy hostage. Over with Luffy, his adventures stay much the same as canon, with him meeting and being betrayed by Nami, though to his dismay, when he is imprisoned in his cage, he finds that it already has an inhabitant, with that being Kobe. Dejectedly, the pink-haired boy apologizes for his weakness, though Luffy tells him not to worry about it, declaring they'll figure a way out of this. Unfortunately, this might be overly optimistic, as in an attempt to force her to prove her loyalty, Buggy the Clown, leader of the Buggy Pirates, commands Nami to kill Luffy and Kobe with a cannon, an act she seems more than willing to do, stating that she has no love for pirates. However, despite her claims of ambivalence, Nami cannot go through with killing the earnest Straw Hat crew, instead turning on Buggy and knocking out one of his men as she attempts to stop the cannon from firing. Unfortunately, one cat burglar against a mob of clownish pirates is not exactly a great matchup, with Nami soon finding herself pinned to the ground as the fuse draws closer and closer to its end. island. With no one left to save him and Kobe, Luffy decides to take matters into his own hands, a glint forming in his eye as he warns Kobe to hang on. Then using the only part of himself not tied up, his legs, he stretches them out to kick the barrel of the cannon, so it will point towards Buggy instead. However, with the fuse being so close to gone, it only manages to make it halfway, with the buggy ball instead being fired directly upwards, flying high into the air and out of sight. This causes a tense silence, until the screech of the explosive hurtling back towards them causes the buggy pirates to respond in panic, running for their lives, while Nami, now freed, uses the moment of distraction to slyly tie Buggy's shoelaces together so that he is caught up in the blast of Luffy's insane counteroffensive, and sends soaring away in a million pieces just as she takes cover. Unfortunately, the resultant explosion also takes out a massive portion of Orange Town, far more than what had been destroyed in canon, along with the majority of Buggy's crew, and even the cage containing the boys. In the aftermath, Kobe lies smoking and twitching beside his captain, who laughs that those guys weren't kidding about the buggy ball packing a punch. Though unlike the end of their last escapade, Kobe is in no mood to laugh, tears swimming in his eyes as he looks out on the scene of devastation caused by their actions, or in his case, inactions. Rising to his feet, the bespectacled boy trudges his way through the ashes in search of survivors, each new sight further instilling in him a need to get stronger. If he'd been strong like Luffy, he never would have been captured, and he could have saved his captain and this town. For the most part, Kobe finds no one. That is until he reaches what appears to be a pet shop, where he spots something moving beneath the rubble. Dropping to his hands and knees, Kobe quickly frees the trapped villager, finding that it's a small white dog, sporting a few nasty burns and scratches from the collapse of the building. Pulling the dog into a hug, Kobe promises him that everything will be alright, and as the dog gently licks his cheek, the voice of Luffy speaks up behind him, agreeing that it will be. Turning to his captain, Kobe tearfully confesses the guilt he feels for Orange Town's destruction, with Luffy replying that he knows what it feels like to be helpless, adding in his trademark happy-go-lucky way that he used to be a real crybaby just like Kobe until his big brothers toughened him up. He then bends down and picks up a piece of discarded pipe, handing it to his first mate, and promising that he will help him get stronger. Not long after this, the Straw Hat Pirates depart, now 2 members stronger, with Nami having agreed to tag along with them like in canon, and the dog Kobe found having decided to stick by his side as well. Being a clever dog, he had managed to dig up his food bowl from the wreckage of the pet store before they left, with the crew discovering his name is Shoo Shoo, a welcome piece of information, as Luffy had been proposing they just call him Dog. Now the team of 4 are ready to move on to the next island, with Luffy having Kobe row them all the way there by himself as part of his training. To Luffy's surprise, their next port of call is Syrup Village, with the boy commenting that one of his old friends Yasop used to live here, a relevant fact, as soon the Straw Hats come across his son Usopp, as well as his trio of young followers, who proudly call themselves the Usopp Pirates. From here much of the Syrup Village arc goes as canon, with the gang meeting Kaya and her staff, with the butler Klahadore being revealed to be none other than the treacherous Captain Kuro of the Black Cat Pirates, who plans to invade and claim Kaya's fortune for himself. Though Usopp tries to warn the other villagers of the imminent attack, his habit of lying comes back to bite him, with no one believing him, and thus it falls to Usopp, along with the Straw Hat Pirates, to defend Syrup Village. Here the absence of Zoro makes things difficult for our heroes, with Kobe having to step up and lead the charge in the early stages of the battle, though after his perceived failure in Orange Town, the young first mate refuses to let fear or weakness hold him back. To this end, he holds the line alongside Nami, Usopp and Shoo Shoo until Luffy can arrive and take out the weaker Black Cat Pirates with his Gum Gum Gatling gun. Unfortunately, the tide soon begins to turn back in the favor of the invaders with the arrival of the Nyaban brothers, as with Luffy having been put to sleep by Django's hypnotism, it once more falls to Kobe to pick up the slack. At first things go poorly to say the least, with Kobe's pipe being no match for the steely claws of Shaman Buchi. However, what Kobe lacks in muscle, he more than makes up for in brains, with him having Nami deploy her caltrops now, thus limiting the Nyaban brothers' mobility, while he steps forward to whack them both over the head and knock them out, unconcerned with the damage he might do to himself in the process. Meanwhile, Usopp capitalizes on the distraction Nami and Kobe are employing to fire off his lead star, striking Django in the temple and rendering him unconscious too. And so it is that when Kuro arrives, it is to the sight of his crew utterly decimated by this ragtag group of defenders. However, in his eyes this changes nothing, as it merely means he has no need to split the spoils with any of these rank amateurs if they're weak enough to be defeated by children. Turning his attention to Usopp and the Straw Hats, he informs them of the futility of their resistance, since he is Kuro of 1,000 plans, meaning nothing they have done is outside the realm of his contingency planning. And soon, his ultimate plan will come into fruition, with them being dead, along with that brat Kaya, and him being the sole beneficiary of her wealth. By now, Kobe has woken Luffy, with him being eager to return to the fight, though surprisingly, it is not him who lands the first blow on Kuro, with it instead being Shushu, who bites him on the leg as he is monologuing. Gasping in shock and pain, the captain of the Black Cat Pirates responds with ruthless efficiency, calling the dog a disgusting mutt as he kicks him away. However, this is not enough for Kuro, and so whipping his bladed fingers through the air, he delivers a deep slash to Shushu's side, which oozes blood and causes him to collapse, much to the horror of the Straw Hats. For all his intelligence, it seems that Kuro does not know how very unwise it is to mess with a family's dog. Though fortunately, Luffy, Kobe and Nami are there to beat the lesson into him, rushing the pirate turned butler and laying into him with fists, pipe and staff. Even Usopp joins in with a couple more lead stars, all of which combined prove rather overwhelming for Kuro, whose disdain for everyone proves to be his undoing, as he has no one to assist him repel the team attack, meaning he is soon knocked out as well, resulting in a victory for the defenders of Syrup Village. However, the question still remains of what to do with their vanquished foes, with Luffy grinning that he wants to take Kuro with them, since he thinks he'd be a good training partner for Kobe, an idea which horrifies the boy. He then also extends an offer for Usopp to join their crew, though surprisingly like Zoro, the long-nosed boy refuses, stating that the Straw Hat's incredible strength and bravery has inspired him, and while he'd like to adventure with them, he can't help but wonder how much stronger he could get by setting off on his own. From behind him, a group of voices pipe up that Usopp won't be alone, with Kaya and the 3 young members of the Usopp pirates declaring that they're coming with him. Worried for their safety, Usopp tries to protest, though in a rational tone, Kaya points out that she's the only one with the ship, so if he wants to get off this island, it's going to be with her. While at her side, Ninjin, P-Man, and Tamanegi pout that they're Captain Usopp's crew, so he can't leave them behind. Relenting with a sigh, Usopp concedes that he supposes it wouldn't hurt to have them around, though he does warn in a mock-serious tone that he expects the proper respect from all of them if he's to be their captain. Saluting loyally, the 4 members of the Usopp pirates along with their captain then depart to plan their voyage, while in a concerned tone, Kobe comments they really ought to be thinking about acquiring a proper ship of their own, as their little dinghy won't hold 4 people and a dog. Luckily, Luffy has a solution, pointing to Kuro's ship, the Bezan Black, and laughing that they'll just take it, since the Black Cat Pirates don't need it anymore. Not to mention they'll need the room for Kobe's training, as well as a place for a musician, since he wants that to be the next crew member they recruit. And so it is that the Straw Hats set sail on the next outgoing tide, with Kobe acting as interim helmsman while Nami navigates. Not long after they leave shore, Kuro finally awakens, having a splitting headache and more than a few questions regarding why he's back on the Bezan Black. Laughing heartily, Luffy explains that it's his ship now, and that Kuro is also now part of his crew, adding that he figures he'll make a good cabin boy. Sniffing with disgust at the idea, Kuro protests that he is the second smartest man in East Blue, and so will not be reduced to the indignity of serving as a mere cabin boy. If he is to be trapped here, he demands a station more fitting for his education, such as the ship's doctor. Shrugging, Luffy says that's fine too, since they don't have one of those either, leaving Kuro rather puzzled at the nonchalance of this brat. All the same, he does set up shop inside one of the cabins, figuring that for now it is better to play along, since he will gain nothing by trying to kill Straw Hat and his friends, at least not until he is strong enough to be sure he can take them all out at once. As it turns out, Kuro's medical services are needed right away, with his first patient being one he created, that being Shushu, who growls suspiciously at the Catman as he administers stitches to the cut he made in the dog's side. Dismissively, Kuro tells the mutt to be quiet, calling him a foul beast, though driven by his own sense of pride, he makes sure to do a good job, patching Shushu up as best he can, and informing Kobe that with plenty of rest, the dog will make a full recovery, his tone suggesting this outcome pains him to no end. Nonetheless, Kobe thanks the captain turned butler turned doctor, his earnestness being just as off-putting to Kuro as Straw Hat's informality. Over the next few days, Kuro comes to know more and more about the odd personality quirks that make up his so-called crew, such as Nami's obsession with the value of bounty posters, especially that of the fishman Sawtooth Arlong, and Straw Hat's almost inhuman love of meat. These interactions only further cement the desire to be as far away from the lot of them as humanly possible, though to his dismay, the Bezan Black's next stop is not on any island, but instead a floating restaurant called the Baratie, as in his infinite gluttony, Straw Hat has already eaten through all of their provisions. Unfortunately, with Luffy being Luffy, he's still responsible for a cannonball damaging the Baratie, and is thus relegated to spend a year as their chore boy to make up the cost of the repairs. Being a kind soul, Kobe volunteers to work alongside Luffy, halving the time it will take to repay the debt, though even still, this means their voyage will be on hiatus for 6 months. However, it seems the Baratie is the place to be, as another rowdy guest soon arrives, that being a member of the feared Krieg pirates named Gin, who is starving until assistant chef Sanji saves his life with food. Being an empathetic young man, Koby encourages Luffy to help Sanji with this, causing Gin to find himself not with one young savior but three. Such kindness touches the ruffian's heart, with him stating that he is in their debt as he leaves to find his fleet, though it seems no good deed goes unpunished, as not long after Gin returns with the entire Krieg armada. Though his intentions had been good, wanting to save his crew from starvation and make the people who saved him rich in the process, Gin is horrified to learn that Don Krieg does not intend to pay their saviors, but instead conquer them and steal their ship. Feeling intensely remorseful, he attempts to dissuade his captain from this course of action, though it seems their course is set, with the siege of the Baratie beginning at once. In contrast to Syrup Village, this iteration of the Straw Hats actually find themselves in a more advantageous position than canon, as Koby is naturally going to stand by Luffy's side and show off the fruits of his training, while even Kuro deigns to fight alongside them for the sake of his own survival, with his bounty being only 1,000,000 less than Krieg's, making them comparable in strength. Not only that, but Kuro also understands men like Krieg, having run his organization in a similar manner, which allows him to predict Pearl's sneak attack, as well as the fact that Gin, for all his talk of friendship, will cave to Krieg's will. Thanks to this insight, he dispatches Sanji and Koby to deal with them, having Koby fight Gin in a duel of Tonfa versus Pipe, while Sanji can take out the Iron Wall with greater ease thanks to Zeph not being a hostage. This leaves Kuro free to take on Krieg with Straw Hat as his battle partner, odious though the prospect may be. Despite them being an odd couple pairing, Kuro and Luffy actually make a good team, with the boys' bombastic and straightforward attacks serving as perfect cover for Kuro to deliver stealth strikes with his pussyfoot maneuver. As a result, the tides quickly turn against Krieg, with him living up to his name by employing foul play in the form of poison grenades, which he callously hurls right at the battlers outside the restaurant. Disgusted by this dirty trick, Luffy yells that he will kill his own people in the Baratie as well, but Krieg doesn't care, pointing out how with Pearl having been defeated and Gin surrendered due to a refusal to harm two of the people who saved his life, they are both worthless to him. The idea of treating crew members as disposable infuriates Luffy, causing him to declare that he'll take down Krieg personally, before giving Kuro his first order as a Straw Hat: save the people who've been poisoned, no matter which side they're on. Nodding, Kuro retreats to the Bezan Black, in search of any antidotes they may have, leaving Luffy to end the battle with Krieg like in canon, delivering a gum-gum sledgehammer that fells Krieg as the defenders of the Baratie and remnants of the Krieg pirate-like watch on in awe. In the aftermath of Krieg's defeat, both sides must recollect themselves, with Kuro's massive intellect allowing him to synthesize enough antidote from both what he has and the sample provided by the chefs to ensure that everyone will survive. Well, almost everyone, as once his doctoral duties are done, Kuro takes a moment to show off his primary skill set, slitting Krieg's throat and kicking his corpse into the ocean to ensure his demise. Furiously, Luffy demands to know what Kuro did that for, saying even if he was a bad guy, Krieg didn't deserve that. They're showing a clear difference in their ideologies. The former Black Cat pirate snaps at Straw Hat to wake up. By sparing Krieg, all they would accomplish is creating someone with a vendetta against them, who could one day come back and finish them off. In fact, Straw Hat has already made that very mistake by sparing him, vowing that one day he will kill the rubber boy for that decision. However, instead of looking shocked or hurt, Luffy laughs, telling Kuro he guesses it's kinda like a wager then. If the glasses-clad doctor kills him, then it'll prove he was wrong to spare him, but if he doesn't, then it means he's right, and it's better to allow bad guys to live. Either way, they'll see sooner or later. Then, without another word, he heads off in search of a snack, leaving Kuro and everyone else in a state of utter bewilderment. It is at this point that Dracula Mihawk arrives, having seen the battle and decided to watch from afar once he realized Luffy was involved. Curiously, everyone asks what interest a warlord of the sea and the strongest swordsman in the world has with their captain, to which Mihawk reveals himself as a former rival of Shanks, with red hair having always spoken highly of Luffy. Showing no deference at all, the rubber boy invites Mihawk to chat with him about Shanks as he continues to stuff his face, though he does warn that if the warlord tries to take his meat, he'll punch him, even if he is a friend of Shanks. Briefly, Mihawk raises an eyebrow at this crass invitation, though seeing something of his red-headed rival in the boy, he takes a seat and begins conversing with Luffy in his slow, hypnotic voice. Meanwhile, outside the restaurant, Koby watches the tide with Gin. Despite Krieg's betrayal, the ruffian is at a loss now that he is gone, having been wholly devoted to his captain. In a kind voice, Koby suggests he could always come with them, saying that it would be a big help to have someone who's actually been to the Grand Line. Having nothing better to do, and remembering the debt he swore to Luffy and Koby, Gin agrees on the condition that Luffy stop pestering Sanji to join them, as this way he can repay his debt to the cook as well. Smiling, Koby says Luffy's pretty persistent when it comes to stuff like that, though he'll see what he can do. This proves satisfactory to Gin, who gives a gruff nod of thanks, before telling the pink-haired boy to point them to their ship. It is at this moment that Kobe realizes he hasn't seen the Bezan Black for a while, nor has he seen Nami since before the start of the battle. Rushing inside to ask his friends if they know what happened, it is instead Mihawk who answers, saying that he saw a girl with orange hair fleeing the scene on a black and red ship if that's what he's talking about. Worriedly, Kobe asks if he saw where she was heading, to which the warlord shrugs that if he were to posit a guess, Arlong Park, though it could have been any number of places. Speaking up now, Kuro confirms that he suspects it is there, as she had some sort of fascination with Arlong, before scowling that he's gonna cut that brat into ribbons for stealing his ship. Though not as vengeful, Kobe does agree they need to get the Bezan Black back, as well as find out why Nami betrayed them. However, here Luffy stops him, saying he's sure that Nami didn't betray them, and that she must have had a good reason to borrow their ship, which they can ask her about when they meet up. Sighing deeply, Kuro calls this more of Straw Hat's naivete, with even the newest crew member in Gin being inclined to agree with the Doctor, stating that though he hates to contradict his captain, the evidence would suggest this girl betrayed them, and so must be dealt with accordingly. Laughing that they just don't get it, and that he knows in his gut Nami is trustworthy, Luffy rises to his feet, telling his crew to come with him, since it's time they get back on the sea. They're heading Arlong Park.